Hello, this is Joan Madsen from the Seminole County Library System in Castleberry. Thank you for joining me for a video of the project we did in January, drawing with a ballpoint pen, and we worked on a blue jay. This is the Pixabay photo I downloaded of the blue jay. I desaturated it so we'd only be working with one color. And this is the final rendition of the blue jay in ballpoint pen. Hello everyone, and I am going to be sharing with you today a drawing of this blue jay using a ballpoint pen. On the plus side with a ballpoint pen is they're all over the place. You can pick them up and draw beautiful pictures with them. On the negative side, once you put that mark down, it's down for good. On the positive side, as you develop your style, you'll be able to cover those dots up or spots or stray lines and make them part of your drawing. Now, I've already done this class in the second week of January, and I did this in a black, and I did the bird in blue. Most people have a black pen or a blue pen. You can do this in a red pen, a purple pen. It doesn't matter. The idea is to learn the technique and enjoy the process. So let me begin by showing you how you can do shading. We'll begin with cross-hatching. We can cross-hatch at an angle, and then we can come back again perpendicularly to the original line and make it darker. I'm, of course, spreading these out so that you can see what I'm doing. And you can keep coming back with more lines and more cross-hatching. Another way to go is to do straight lines and then bring in another line halfway up to cause shadow, and then bring more lines in about a quarter of the way up with that halfway mark so that you have 3 levels of shade: dark, medium, and light. Another way you can do this is to just make little circles, the way many people do with their colored pencils. And you just move around going over and over and over. And this is something you want to do when you want a dark area. If you do it very lightly, you'll have a nice fluffy feature, which might be something you want. It's just circles, but you make them tighter and darker when you want to darken an area. Now, you may also just do lines together like this. Very, very close together. And then you can come and cross-hatch it again to make it even darker. Or you can move back and forth very quickly, going back and forth over the lines and making it straightforward. If you're doing a round form, a cylindrical form, you would just bring your lines in a curve, following the curve of the cylinder. And we're going to repeat this process. Just come halfway through that first line, and then do a quarter of the way through. So you have dark lines. Looks a little like a chemistry tube for measuring ingredients in an experiment. And there's a name for that that I do not now remember. Used to know it, don't remember it now. Okay. They're either glass or plastic, and they're cylinders, and they have metric measurements on the sides. Okay, so those are the movements I'm going to be using. And this is ordinary copy machine paper. Nothing fancy, just ordinary copy machine paper. And I'm going to start by drawing freehand. You can certainly print out an image and trace it onto a paper and work from there. I'm going to work in freehand, which is what I did with the others. Just doing some light irregular lines for the irregular feathers, the soft white feathers that come underneath the bird. Well, they're really sort of grayish and blue. Make sure I put the eye in. Okay. Put in the markings. Make sure I've built up the beak sufficiently. It's a little bit rounder edge. And I'm not worried that I'm doing lines over and over because I'll be coming over those to shade in. Now, I haven't done the feet yet, or the claws. But the feathers run here, and then there's a group of white feathers, and then there are more feathers, and then they build down to here where there are tail feathers. These are the wing feathers. So I'll be drawing those in as markings right now. I'm just going to be doing a little scalloping, and then I'm going to bring a scallop of white feathers. And if you want to leave something white, you have to let the paper shine through. And there are some little individual white feathers here. There we go. I put those white feathers in. Now, there's a trim of tiny black feathers on the edge of that scallop. I'm going to put that in. And then we've got two more rows of scallops. There we go. And the markings, there's a line that comes this way. And there's a reflection on the eye, so I'm going to draw it out, and I've drawn a little bit of a reflection where the eye goes. Now I'm going to come back and work on the legs. And I have a leg in the foreground. And there it is standing in air, which is not good, which is why we're going to put that gate in. Not a great gate. It's a wrought iron hoop, the top edge, so the bird has some place to rest. So now gravity makes sense. In this composition, we want to have gravity and we want it to make sense. Now I'm going to move over to the tail feather for finer detailing. As you can see, there are what appear to be stripes, and essentially the change in tiny feathers. I don't mind if I'm making them too small. I can always make them larger as I move along. But I don't want to start out making them too large. So I have those markings. Now, I'm going to go back and start up here, and I'm going to be doing little circles, very dark. I am pressing and making sure it goes, and I don't want to leave white. Okay. And then I'm going to move right over here and just put in a darker outline of this portion of the beak. Okay. I'm going to move on to the eyeball. Okay. And we're going to darken the line, that marking that goes from the eye to the beak, and from the eye to the neck. And I'm going to work little lines up and down very close together. Back and forth. I'm leaving jagged pieces here at the edge because those are pieces of feathers that are either that are being overlapped from above. Okay. Now we're going to move back over to the beak. The bottom of the beak, I'm going to work in little circles, and the beak is gray in appearance. I'm just going to do some lighter lines on the top of the beak. I'm going to come back on the bottom to cover up those little patchy spaces. And more lines to make that seem rounder. Okay. Now we're going to work on the head. In this picture, let me show you the black and white. You can print this out as a black and white or work from the color. I've done both. You'll see here the blue is slightly darker than the white in the black and white. So this section is a little bit darker, and that's what we're going to go with. I'm not going to make it, the head is not going to be all the same color. And this is where I color in those extra lines that I've created. And I'm just doing short lines. These are feathers, short feathers, and I'm doing quarter of an inch long lines. we go. This marking comes out more. Light lines. Okay, that's the bottom of the head. Now, the collar starts here. And I'm just going to do light lines for the light gray or pale blue, depending upon how you want to look at this, of the bird's head. Again, they're a quarter of an inch long, an eighth of an inch long, and not too much overlapping. Now, the blue part of the head is a little bit darker. It's closer to this, so I'm going to do the pieces. I'm going to work at the bottom first. Let them overlap and out. It doesn't have to be as close together, but I am laying them down in slight curves because the head slightly curves there. It's imperceptible. Maybe it's not even there, but I like it, so I'm putting it there. Keeping in mind, this is your work. You can change anything you want. So now the head is complete. Now I'm going to work on the belly. As you can see in the belly, the center is gray, darker here, and then lightens up, and here as well, gray here, lightens up, a dark shadow there. I'm just making the marks a little bit closer together where the shadow is darkest. I'm going to come back and add a little bit more shading at the bottom of the belly. It's a little bit darker here. And we will come back over here a bit. Just loose lines. Now this area here is shadow. So I'm just doing strong, long lines along the edge of the wing feathers. Okay, now I'm going to come back up and darken those edges of the scallops, just moving back and forth a few times to create dark edges on the scallops. Now you can do these drawings using multiple colors of ballpoint pens, any ballpoint pen, expensive ones, inexpensive ones, as long as the ink is flowing. You can create shades by cross-hatching with different colors. You can handle this any way you'd like. And we've got to scallop the white ones. We have to be very careful when we get into scallop the white ones. We want to make sure that we're not darkening those. And I'm going to do the top of the wing feathers first. Work from the bottom up. Just doing half-inch strokes, quarter-inch strokes on a slight curve. And then curving them around as I go to straighten them, because the shape of the bird is changing in this area. And then we come back again. Moving them back and around to the left. Doing these a little bit lighter. The back is a little bit lighter. Don't worry about seeing lines caused by the drawing of these hash marks. That's normal because that's where the feathers are now appearing. And I'm going to throw in a couple of errant feathers because it makes the bird look more real. Here, I'm going to move up as opposed to down to put myself in a rhythm so that I won't overlap the blue pen into the white feathers. Very nice. Okay, now we have runs the wing feathers coming down in straight lines and an angle. So let me, I think we can have this. And I think there's another little white one over there. Okay. And then moving down here and around. These are very, very close together. And I didn't draw them in initially because it's too easy to become distracted when you're in this process and end up messing up with the ink pen. If you prefer to work that way, there is no issue. Everybody works their own technique. I know my lines aren't straight. But I'm not worried about that. I'll be putting in some light shadows as well. Okay, so we've got this in set. And this is a feather. And that's a feather. And that's a feather. Put a little line there. This is a feather. Okay, so I've created additional feathers there, the appearance of different additional feathers. And we have one here and one here. Okay, that looks a lot more populated. Now, this section, starting right about here, has some stripes in darker blue, and they're working at an angle from our perspective. Now I'm going to put in more shadow. And I am going to turn the paper so that I can do it a little more easily, more effectively. Just running a darker line along the edges, thickening it up. This is a medium pen. Most of the pens you'll pick up in a store are medium. They do come fine, medium, and bold. But you have to look, you probably have to order them online or order them through your store. Okay. So those are more defined. Now I'm going to come back over here and color in little circles around those little white feathers, so I don't cover up the white feathers. They're small circles, they're close together. Now I'm going to come back up. With these feathers, I'm drawing a fine line through the tail feathers, and I'm going to do lines coming down from the quill. And I'm going to do that with all of them. And I'm going to be so we'll have a couple of errant feathers there. All right. Now, for the wing feathers, I'm going to just go lightly up and down at a slight angle, imitating the movement of the quills in the feather, or the spines in the feather. And the same here. And I know those colors look very similar, but in that area of the feather, it's much darker. The blues are much darker, so the stripes are less easily seen. So we're good with this. And now, I'm just going to do the same thing over here. Just up and down movements. But in doing this, it doesn't bother me that I'm going back and forth on the other lines and the other feathers, because I'm covering them up as I go. I'm just going to move straight through for these. Sorry, I'm making the camera shake with that movement. Okay. Now we're moving on to the tail feathers. Again, the tail feathers, those marks are darker. I'm not making them smooth bars. I'm moving very up and down about a 1/16 of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, closer to an 1/8 of an inch. A little bit bigger than the bars that I drew. Okay. And I'm going to turn this to my advantage so I can work better on it. And again, I'm moving in the downward motion on a diagonal coming from the quill. Try to be careful not to go over the edge. What I'm going to do is draw in an extra feather here because I made an extra line. There we go. And then I have to work on, or now I have to work on the legs and the claws. Work with the background first. And I'm just going to do some up and down and circles. In the shadow area. There is an edge of sunlight hitting, so I'm going to draw an edge where the sunlight hits. And make sure I leave that out. Back and forth lines, little circles. Now we realize in reality that the claws would be gray or tan. In this case they're gray, but they certainly wouldn't be blue. But it's art. We can do what we want. It looks like a bird, and that's the important part because that's what we're trying to put out. Okay, and now I'm going to do another shadow here where the sunlight hits. There's an area here where it's a little bit lighter, and there's an edge here where it's a little bit lighter. Okay, so I've drawn those in, and I'm going to very carefully draw around the reflected areas. All right, the claws are done. Now the next and the last step, we'll be working on the wrought iron hoop of the fence. And what I'm doing is working on a curved angle. I'm moving up on a curve, cross hatching, not making it too close. Just bringing down more lines in the darker area. Okay, and now the blue jay is complete, and I can turn off my electric ink pen, which isn't necessary because it's not electric, just an ordinary everyday ballpoint pen, and I've drawn a lovely picture freehand, leaving very few errors showing. And you can do this as well. As I said, you can trace an image and work within the tracing if you'd like. There's no reason you can't do that. And experiment with different colors and adding different colors to it if you wish. For instance, we'll add a little red. Let's say this bird has a little bit of a red tail. We'll just take that red pen and add in some red on those feathers, and so we're creating a bit of a red tail. Easily done. Okay, let's say that this gate has been painted green. So I'm going to draw in green lines from the outer edge and in. It won't completely cover the blue, but it'll change the appearance of the blue. automatically. So now that it's been painted green, if there's still highlight, you can add color to anything you want in any way you want. You can draw trees in the background, you can draw other birds, you can draw falling leaves, you can do a buka, whatever you wish, because it is, of course, your drawing. I hope you've enjoyed this. I look forward to working with you for the February class, the second Wednesday in February, should be the 9th, and we will be working with white chalk on black paper. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care and see you next time.